aqueous outflow due to scarring influences the long-term success, and appropriate management at the proper time is essential. So typically on the first post-op day, you have moderate inflammation, and what you usually do is give frequent topical steroids and cycloplegics on day 1. And if the IOP is very high, and by very high, I don't mean don't aim for an IOP of less than 10 on the first post-op day, because those are the blebs which are eventually going to fail. You need to limit inflamed aqueous going into the bleb in the early post-op period. So high teens blebs we've seen are really good in the long term. So if your IOP is really high, as in maybe in the late 20s or even the early 30s, and you have a bleb that is flat like this, then it is time to worry. And what we do is a very, very gentle digital massage. Now that has to be really controlled. It can be posterior to the scleral loop, as Dr. Pandav just said, but sometimes that can be a little uncomfortable for the patient. So I picked this up at some IC when I attended, that you can ask the patient to look straight ahead and give a very gentle massage on the center of the cornea, because that's not where your incision is, and I've noticed that it's very comfortable for the patient. So you can just give a little bit of a nudge, just see how much of IOP goes, take the pressure again, but limit yourself to the late teens or maybe even the early 20s, but not too low. And be very careful that you don't give it all the way, because suddenly from 30 you might have a zero pressure and then you're in trouble. And the principle is that you just want to fish mouth the scleral flap which hasn't healed as yet. So just fish mouth it a little bit and let it close a little. So let go of a little aqueous like a valve, and then just let it be there. It's better to have it, like I said, and be careful that you don't shallow it. Now, in the first post-op week, usually it's quite vascular, obviously, because you've made so many incisions. If they are very excessively corkscrewed or inflamed, we usually do give a subconjunctival 5-fluorouracil. The dose is 5 milligram in 0.1 cc. You get 5-fluorouracil as a 250 milligram or a 500 milligram in 100. So in 10, sorry, on 250 in 5. So actually the concentration is just there. You want the concentration, you don't need to do anything to it. And under absolute aseptic conditions, we tend to give the injection away from the bleb because you don't want it going in. And I've heard this many times, but I burnt my finger and learnt it the hard way. This is a 5-FU injection that was too close, and it actually just seeped into the eye. And in front of your eyes, your cornea becomes from clear to steamy, and there's striate keratopathy, and this is toxicity of 5-FU. My heart was in my mouth, and I sort of told the patient that this has happened and I need to watch you. Mercifully it cleared. You can see how the cornea became. These are all the 5-FU toxicity in the stroma, but frequent steroids saved the day for me that day, but I don't want to test my luck too much, so I've been very careful in not going too near the other thing. And then do all your massage, manipulation, suture removal, whatever you want before injecting the 5-FU, because you don't want that bolus to come into an eye which you have suddenly made hypotenuse. The second question is, where do we manipulate sutures? So if you have an intraocular pressure which is still high, or you need excessive pressure for massage, think of releasable suture removal. You've just seen a video of that. Or do a laser suturalysis, one of the two. If you haven't used releasable sutures, laser suturalysis is another thing to do. But usually, especially since we use mitomycin, we don't intervene before the first week. So usually it's at about 5 to 7 days. And having said that, if you wait too long, if you wait more than 3 weeks, even with mitomycin, you've lost the battle. Then there's no point, because invariably that suture is going to break. So usually between the first and the third weeks are when we do our suture lysis. It's helped a lot because we don't as carefully titrate the bleb on table, because we know that we are going to close it pretty much firmly because we have releasable sutures to help us in the second week. Now, if you have excessive conjunctival injection or corkscrewing and you have an increasing IOP, you need to ask yourself why. Later in the day, you might have a high bleb phase in which you see an encysting of the bleb. And Robert Rich has actually shown very nicely on the UBM that the conjunctival microcysts inside the bleb tend to flatten. And it is through the microcysts that the fluid goes out. and therefore when it flattens, the fluid cannot, and it just keeps and keeps getting collected around. So interestingly, after doing a trab, at this stage, usually you need to give aqueous suppressants. You need to bring it down a little so that those microcysts form again and you can restore the outflow. And if it is flattened, then obviously it is inadequate and you need to consider something, maybe even needling. But look at the sclerostomy before you do anything, and if it's blocked, then you need to revise the bleb, because there's no point in doing anything on the surface if your outflow in the sclerostomy is blocked. So I'll give you an example of a high bleb phase. So this is POD1. By POD7, we gave a 5-FU injection. By 6 weeks, the pressure started rising, and we recognize this is the high bleb phase that you recognize. It's cystic. If you recognize it in time, you'll possibly avoid a Tenon cyst. But we started timolol in him. You need to give an aqueous suppressant. And by 10 weeks, you can see that the bleb has now settled. The bleb height is lesser, and the pressure has also come down. And then is when you stop your aqueous suppressant. And at 4 weeks, this is a reasonable bleb with the diffuse architecture. The fluid is less, and the pressure is also controlled. But if you miss it here, and you miss seeing, and you see the pressure is fine or something, and then the high bleb phase is what is going to carry on. You'll have a ring of steel, as Dr. Penko has told us, and then you have a Tenon cyst. So avoid that at that time. And so this is a typical course in a young patient. So day 1, you of course start with frequent steroids. By day 7, we do the suture removal and give an injection 5-FU. By day 21, you can see the bleb has diffused, and these are actually normal looking vessels. These are not corkscrewed anymore. So this has settled. So you see those vessels which are going round and round in the early period, they have settled. And by month 3, it's a flat, diffuse, normal conjunctiva bleb. And these are the kind of blebs that we tend to realize last longer than others. So I just like to share this study by Dr. Anthony King. And it's something that has helped me be very humble about my trabeculectomies. So they actually looked at 119 of their own trabeculectomies and who had completed a year's follow-up. So some form of bleb manipulation was done in 78% of them. So really, in the best of hands, there is no trab that can be done without a post-op manipulation. And it's not true that you can get away, my trab is so good that I don't need to see him for 6 weeks. It's not true. And there's a bit of a dichotomy when I hear people say, somebody who won't come back for follow-up, I will do a trab. For me, somebody who won't come back for follow-up is not a good candidate to do a trab at all, because I have no idea what's going to happen. Half of them underwent a massage on day 1. Half of them required at least 1 suture removal by day 7. 1/3 required at least 1 extra 5-FU, even though they were all with MMC, by day 14. And 1/4 required at least 1 needling and 1 5-FU by the time it was 6 weeks. So post-op intervention is frequent after glaucoma surgery. It does require intensive post-op follow-up. And I always give this last line, which is a conclusion from this paper. It's labor-intensive, and it's a labor-intensive undertaking. So in summary, I would say that trabeculectomy is only the beginning of a process which is aimed at achieving satisfactory bleb morphology and adequate IOP control. The post-op period does involve many, many adjustments. Each of the various interventions has a specific role. There's no one-size-fits-all, either in isolation or in combination. Recognition of bleb morphology, and that's the basis of intervening appropriately, but it's a sobering fact that despite close monitoring, some trabeculectomies do ultimately fail. Thank you. No, there's no set protocol. It is completely dependent on the morphology of your bleb. If you see an angry looking bleb which you think is likely to wall off or fail, that's when you give the 5-FU. I give it when I see a lot of corkscrewing and a lot of vessels, but I would not give a 5-FU less than a week after I've done an MMC trab.
I think there also you have to look at the, the bleb architecture. When the bleb is, if the bleb is already very ischemic, I think even giving 5-FU is not going to help. It may actually make it worse sometime. Yes. So if you have the underlying thing is that is your bleb reasonably perfused or not? Is the tissue getting nutrition or not? So if your tissue is not getting nutrition, you can't really do anything about it. And that means then you just flatten the bleb, bring it closer to the blood supply, give some steroid, cut down on the inflammation, and that is going to help. But if there's enough nutrition to the tissue, then of course you want to prevent the extra vessels which are coming in. For that, the 5-fluorouracil extra vessel is basically fibrosis you want to cut down. So for that, I think 5-fluorouracil is useful. And as Dr. Sushma said, there is no set protocol. We use it as and when required basis. And when do you use it? Basically because now your bleb is getting localized, pressure starts going up, and that's the indicator that there's a fibrosis going on and you want to cut it down. So, and usually we use 2 or 3 injections over a period of 3, 4, or 7 days. I mean, depending on how much you need.
We can repeat it, sir, after how many days?
You can repeat it. I mean, theoretically you can repeat it after 1 day, but usually we keep a little
2,
gap
3
here,
days
2, 3 days after. Yeah.
Ischemic means that it is more of a like nutrition is maybe.
Ischemic, let's see if you're not
Healing
getting
is-
oxygen to the bleb.
So that we need to
Yeah,
press
so
it
that
down
tissue is going to react in different ways. And if there's ischemic tissue, what cells survive best in the ischemia is the fibroblast. So fibroblasts are resistant to die relatively in the ischemia. So I think they'll proliferate. So you'll have fibroblasts, and because now you have a bleb there, and you have fistula there, so the body will try to close that. So these fibroblasts under ischemia, under hypoxia, they will convert into myofibroblasts. So they'll lay down collagen plus extracellular matrix components, and these myofibroblasts, they'll contract and kind of close. So that is why there's a progressive decrease in the bleb area, because the myofibroblasts are contracting, and when they encircle that bleb, it's known clinically as a ring of steel. So that's how the ring of steel is formed. And this ring of steel will keep on contracting, and your centralized bleb, which is localized and hypoxic, they'll become thinner and thinner and thinner. And with time, that might actually, over a period of time, they might give away and that might leak. So that's why you got thin, cystic, leaky blebs.
Should we give the 5-fluorouracil in the inferior fornix? Is it supposed to be given above the bleb superiorly?
So I tend to give it either superotemporally or superonasally, so that it spreads in the area of the corkscrewing and the vessel. The inferior fornix which you're talking about is the protocol of postoperative 5-FU, which used to be given without MMC, 5 milligram BD for 7 days. But it was so traumatic for the patients. When we started our PG, we had half who were doing that and half we were giving MMC. But now nobody is following that post-op 5-FU regimen of inferior fornix, 5 milligram BD. Everybody is using MMC for the bleb. And 5-FU that is being used today is an extra antimetabolite when you think the bleb is likely to fail or is likely scarring down.
We've been giving 5 days in the inferior fornix. We've been giving 5 days in the inferior fornix till like for 5 days regular, like you said.
No, with MMC?
No.
Without, no. So it's either that or that. So this is the regimen. If you don't use MMC, then 5 milligram. Usually it was 5 milligram BD for 7 days without MMC. But if you use MMC, then that's not.
I think earlier when we were giving, starting very early, so like on day 1 we used to give, so before MMC. So then it was at least 190 degrees separation from the main area. So we used to give away from that. But now there's a wound healing has already happened, so you can give it closer to the bleb. Important thing here is that don't inject 5-fluorouracil subtenon, because there's a raised bleb, there's a conjunctiva, there's a tenon capsule, and your fluid is under the tenon's capsule, because we are not sacrificing the tenon's capsule, right? So if you inject under the tenon's capsule, then it might find its way into the anterior chamber. So important to inject it subconjunctivally, not subtenon. And so there's a separation between the two planes. So then it doesn't go into the eye. MMC we have given on table already. So these are the eyes.
Things are going bad. So why not? Are they going to act in different ways?
No, you can use MMC also, but I think MMC is already given on table. So you want to avoid a strong, antifibrosis in the post-operative period.
How about anti-VEGF?
Anti-VEGF have been tried. Actually, even we have tried anti-VEGF, subconjunctival, intracameral, and even on a sponge.
Yeah.
So there's a role, but the problem with anti-VEGF is their half-life is small. So if you inject into the anterior chamber or subconjunctival, it probably runs off very quickly, and within 24, 48 hours, maximum 72 hours, the effect is gone, and all those processes will come back again, because trabeculectomy wounds actually they never heal. You know, if you have a normal conjunctival wound, if you do pterygium or take a graft or something or a trauma and suture it, after 7 days is healed, and after 2-3 weeks you won't even know where the wound was. But in trabeculectomy, these wounds actually keep on evolving for years together. They actually never heal, right? So that's the reason that I think, because we need to keep them following up. I think I subscribe to that thought. I like to wait for longer, because Sushmita has told, see, there's a high bleb phase, and sometimes you get panicky and start needling them. I think I would avoid that. So keep your IOP low with systemic therapy if required for at least 4, 5, 6 weeks, as long as you can. And if bleb IOP doesn't come down by that, and then you would think about needling. But I'm against early needling. The reason is that, number one, the wound is still kind of evolving. What happens is, after say 4 to 6 weeks time, there's a remodulation of the fibrous tissue, and in that phase the excess fibrous tissue is actually removed, and you have a scar becomes subtle and smaller. So if given that opportunity, the wound, the bleb may actually heal itself in that context. But if it's still high IOP, and then you can needle it. And if you needle early, there's inflammation, there might be blood vessels, it is going to bleed more. And once you have blood, new fresh blood coming into the subconjunctival or subtendon space, then that will induce more fibrosis. So I think sometimes it's a self-defeating kind of an exercise. So I like to wait as long as I can before I needle.
And do you prefer an internal bleb needling or an external?
I think we have tried both. Sushmita prefers internal, and I prefer external.
I agree. I don't do the needling first before 3 months. And for us now, ab interno has been more forgiving, less traumatic. I don't need to fiddle, but Sir does a lot of blebotomy and bleb. So I think at the end of the day, it's whatever works, as long as you get the pressures down and get the blebs in.
Yeah, along the same lines, it was my inexperience early, which was making me do needlings very early. So we do needling for 3 reasons. One is encapsulation whenever it happens. Second is subconjunctival fibrosis, which typically sets in quite later. And the early thing that sets in is the subscleral fibrosis, or fibrosis at the scleral flap margin, which sets in quite early. So I used to put tight scleral sutures and used to have no releasables. So if you have a releasable and the fixed suture is not tight, you will not need a early needling. And as you said, that kind of reduces the inflammatory aqueous inflow into the bleb